When Baptists came on the scene, they created a mighty stir. For one, they were zealous beyond what people were used to. And some of their beliefs conflicted with others, and they weren't quiet about their beliefs. They did not believe in infant baptism. They believed that baptism should only occur in adults after they've made a profession of faith. And this caused conflict between them and Anglicans and Methodists. And on top of that, Baptists, they didn't believe that you should be required to have formal education or have formal documentation to preach. They just wanted to preach, and they extended east, they extended west, they extended south and north, going all around evangelizing. And one thing that's unique about the Baptist denomination is that they held more egalitarian beliefs in the way they did things. They always included slaves and blacks and women, and even more, slaves could make a formal um, a formal complaint against whites, and this was really unheard of. They could make a this was almost the only place where slaves could complain and make formal complaints against whites. And so that happened in the church, and women could make complaints as well, and these complaints were heard and voted on, and even women and slaves could vote on whether or not a member should be expelled from the church. And again, this is another thing that caused a stir in the society, because the Baptists did not hold to the social norms. They caused a stir because they didn't do things the way others did. Now, some interesting things about the Baptists as well is that nowadays, if you hear about a Calvinist Baptist church, you would be confused. But in its founding, Calvinism and the Baptist denomination went so hand in hand that almost all Baptist churches were Calvinist. As time progressed, there became a separation distance between Calvinism, and even the debates about Calvinist theology began to lessen, because people realized there were a lot of other things that they had to find answers to. There were a lot of other discussions. There were a lot of other, worldly views that were coming in that they had to fight. They just said that the thought about Calvinism isn't what we need to prioritize right now. Which again, if you hear about Calvinist Baptist churches now, you may say, wait, what? But it's very interesting that link. So, Baptists, because they were so closely linked with slaves and with women, and kind of going against social norms, they had to ask some questions and answer some questions. Well, how do they do holy living given things like slavery? And one of the big questions was, how do they encourage holiness among the slaves when there are marriages between slaves that are ended because they're forcibly separated from each other? Well, what do we do? These are questions they had to confront. They didn't always give an answer to. They didn't always say, this is what we should do. They a lot of times left it up to individual congregations, but they were forced to answer. They were forced to speak about questions that were challenging. And so a Baptist passion for evangelism helped build entrepreneurial church organizations that moved west with the frontier. So they were moving west as the frontier was moving. And this zeal that they had was so unique, because Baptist preachers were just increasing in numbers, and they would go out and preach, and they wouldn't stop. Whether they were persecuted, they would not stop.